Yesterday, my wife humiliated me in front of 50 strangers, 200 fish, 5 guinea pigs, 3 hamsters, and 1 chinchilla. It's 2 p.m. on what was supposed to be a lazy Sunday. Still, I sit on the couch in order to read a book to my kids and discover that I have sat upon a dog collar. And it is a dog collar that is no longer a functional dog collar because it is ripped into about 14 different pieces because I have a feral dog for a pet, who is apparently also an invertebrate because I don't really know how Goose is able to get his head down here in order to get the collar off of his neck, rip it apart, and ruin my day. How did it ruin my day? Well, all I wanted to do on Sunday was read Pinkalicious in the School Cafeteria story to my kids because I can't read it at night when they've been asking to do it for the last 2.5 weeks because it involves food. And if you read a book to kids at night that involves food, then guess what? When the light goes off, they're gonna ask for a cheese stick. You know what? I decide to turn that frown upside down and I say, honey, I'm going to go to the pet store and I'm going to get a new collar for Goose. And because I'm feeling family fun, I'm going to take both of the older kids. And does my wife say, that sounds awesome. Have fun? No, she does not. She says, you should also bring both of the dogs with you, since apparently it is now Sadist Sunday. To which we got into a 7-minute dispute over whether or not you can actually bring dogs to the dog store. I understand the concept. I've seen people do it. However, I fundamentally disagree with it because guess what? I don't go and bring a sandwich to Panera. I don't show up at Chipotle with my own wrapped burrito. But I say, you know what? Fine, let's get outside my comfort zone and let's go on a family camping trip to PetSmart. You know what? For most of the trip, it was actually somewhat enjoyable. The kids had a blast. I had a blast because they had a blast. Millie had a blast because she got to stick her head out the window. And, Goose was there too. Got him a nice new collar. I got both of them Bones, and Mason picked out 2 of the most obnoxious squeaker toys you could possibly imagine. And then we're walking to checkout. And Goose sees the birds. If you know how Goose feels about the birds. Lunges himself at full throttle speed towards what I believe were the cockatoos. It's this point in the story at which I must inform you of my biggest mistake. Left the house, I could not find their individual leashes. So instead, I grabbed the only thing I could find, which is the one leash with the 2 harnesses, which we've only used once before. And let's just say it was a nightmare that ended up with one of us in the pond. As Goose lunges towards the apparent cockatoos, Millie thinks, I don't want to do that. But because that's not how physics works, they end up both snapping each other. Now, I am not sure what kind of spirits within those dogs that snap unleashed. This man is now part of the story. And Goose immediately sits himself down and looks, staring out into the nothingness. And I know that face. Goose needs to take a dump. For context, I have never gotten Goose to go dump on a leash, ever. Imagine my surprise when all of a sudden, he sits up a little bit and proceeds to take a dump in the middle of the aisle of PetSmart. Sure, I know you'll say, Dylan, this happens all the time. That's why they have the little bags on the aisle. And while I'm sure you're right, I would pose the question back to you. Does it happen all of the time while you're holding a second dog and there's 2 kids next to you going, what is Goose doing? And apparently, nothing attracts a crowd quite like 2 kids under the age of 7 screaming at the top of their lungs, Dad, do something! Goose is pooping! And suddenly, there are about 20 strangers that are surrounding me. And then I realize I am also not just in the aisle with the birds, but I am near the aisle with the fishes. And it looks as though every fish has their nose up to the tank, watching. That is the precise moment while I am watching Goose dump on the ground that I realize I haven't felt any sort of tug from the other side of the leash, where Millie is supposed to be. Turn around, and that is when I realize that these strangers are not here to watch a dad make a fool of himself while watching Goose dump on the floor. They are here to acknowledge the fact that there is a large brown dog that is sprinting around the store. Millie has gone rogue. But Riley grabs the leash, and I run around the store trying to find Millie. I see her at the end of the cat food aisle, and I think, great, I found Millie. Also, that looks a lot like Goose that's now jumping on her. Oh, and also, that dog is Goose. And then I hear Riley running up behind me, and she goes, Dad, I'm sorry. I immediately go, oh, don't worry, I know. Now have Goose running around the store, Millie running around the store, Goose's dump still in the aisle 2 aisles over. And now, guess what? Guess who else decides? Oh, I need to take a dump too. So, if you were at PetSmart yesterday and you saw a man carrying multiple bags of dog dump, that was me.